There are moments when the sky feels infinite, and moments when it feels very, very small. A chime cuts through the silence. The captain speaks, calm but tightened at the edges. We are changing route due to regional airspace restrictions. Are we safe? On nights like this, home is not a destination. Home is a calculation. A moving target between missile warnings, closed corridors, and decisions taken in rooms we will never see. The shortest path on a map can disappear in minutes. And then every seat on that aircraft carries the same quiet question: will this detour end in relief or regret? Every conflict gives us headlines. But this story lives beneath the headline, where ordinary people meet extraordinary uncertainty. Across Gulf cities and conflict-adjacent regions, Indians built lives with routine and discipline. Morning shifts. Evening calls home. Monthly remittances. Then, suddenly, routine broke. Not next month. Not after the holidays. When airspace turns unpredictable, how does a nation bring its people home? And what does that journey reveal about risk, resilience, and the true price of global instability? Here is the deeper question: were these isolated travel scares, or early signals of a new era, where civilian movement itself becomes a frontline consequence? Modern aviation runs on a fragile promise that geopolitics and passenger travel can stay in separate lanes. When conflict expands, that wall cracks. Think of airspace as invisible highways in the sky. Close one major corridor, and traffic does not vanish. It compresses. Flights stretch longer. Fuel margins tighten. Crews approach duty limits. Schedules topple like dominoes. A reroute is never just a line bending left or right. It is time, fuel, permissions, weather windows, and sequencing across continents. Now widen the frame. Millions of Indians live and work across the Middle East, one of the world's largest overseas communities. Their labor keeps hospitals staffed, towers rising, supply chains moving, homes functioning. Their remittances keep school fees paid, medicines bought, debts managed back home. In crisis, they are not passenger volume. They are sons and daughters, parents and providers. And behind every arrived safely headline sits a matrix of calls and clearances: consulates, airlines, operations centers, security advisories, weather risk, and timing measured in minutes. But here is where it gets interesting. The moment passengers hear a tense cockpit announcement is usually not the beginning of danger. It is the visible tip of an invisible chain reaction. What sounds like one frightening sentence from the cockpit often begins hours earlier. Regional alerts rise. Insurers flag exposure. Airlines consult security bulletins. Dispatch teams calculate alternates. Pilots receive updates that can change between one waypoint and the next. A precautionary reroute is designed to lower risk. But inside the cabin, precaution feels like crisis. Imagine driving a bus through a city where roads can close without warning. Now lift that bus to 38,000 feet, add hundreds of lives, limited fuel margins, and no shoulder to pull over on. That is the geometry of modern fear. Passengers may hear one calm sentence. Behind it, dozens of professionals may have made dozens of decisions in rapid sequence. Each one small. Together, life-saving. And if one reroute can unsettle one cabin, what happens when thousands of people decide they must leave at once? Evacuation is not one heroic flight. It is a living logistics machine. The public sees one landing. The system sees a moving puzzle with pieces that keep changing shape. There are advisories to issue, assembly points to stabilize, documentation gaps to resolve, priorities to set for children, elderly travelers, medical cases, and those with urgent vulnerabilities. Even when aircraft exist, ground handling can become the bottleneck. Buses arrive late. Counters overload. Immigration stalls. A single delay at one choke point can ripple across everything downstream. It is like emptying a packed stadium through a few narrow exits while the exits themselves keep moving. Many return journeys fragment, city to city, layover to layover, gate change to gate change, one night on a plastic chair, another on the floor, then a final boarding call that feels unreal. Listen to the voices we keep hearing: I stopped caring where I Saturday. We did not sleep for 2 days. When the wheels touched Indian soil, strangers were hugging. Relief is real. But relief is not evenly distributed. Because beneath every reunion lies a harder question: who gets out first, and who remains in the queue? In modern crises, information can move faster than aircraft. And misinformation moves fastest of all. A false closure notice can redirect hundreds. A fake visa claim can drain savings. A manipulated video can turn anxiety into panic in minutes. Trying to leave with unreliable updates is like navigating a storm with a broken compass. Motion feels decisive. Direction is unknown. The safest choice in a crisis often looks irrational in the moment. Wait 1 extra day. Take the longer route. Decline an unverified transfer. Call the official helpline again. Those choices can feel slow. They are often the difference between inconvenience and catastrophe. When fear is loud, trust becomes a discipline. Check source. Check timestamp. Check consistency across official channels. If truth itself becomes contested during evacuation, then this is not only a transport story. It is a preparedness story. A literacy story. A signal versus noise story. Then the plane lands. And we assume the story ends. It does not. For many returnees, the aftershock begins at home: interrupted jobs, uncertain re-entry timelines, rental obligations abroad, school fees due, family debts waiting. Conflict may appear as a dramatic event on television. In real life, it often becomes a long administrative shadow. A sudden return can feel less like closing a chapter and more like being dropped into the middle of one without a script. The most resilient households are rarely the wealthiest. They are the most prepared. Backup documents. Emergency contacts. Savings buffers. Clear communication plans. Alternative work pathways. Migration, treated not as one income stream, but as a risk portfolio. Which leads us to an uncomfortable truth: perhaps this crisis did not create vulnerability. Perhaps it exposed what was already fragile. The real story may not be that conflict disrupted travel. The real story is that global mobility was already running on borrowed stability. Our system is optimized for efficiency: tighter schedules, cost-sensitive operations, concentrated migration corridors, tightly timed layovers, rapid digital communication. In calm weather, it looks elegant. In crisis, it can become brittle. Some will say this is temporary turbulence, and aviation always adapts. They are not wrong. But adaptation can no longer be occasional improvisation. It has to be designed in advance, in policy, in employer contracts, in airline contingency plans, in citizen behavior. This is not only an aviation challenge. It is civic literacy in motion. The next emergency will not reward the lucky. It will reward the prepared. So what did we witness when Indians returned home amid Middle East conflict? Not just crowded terminals. Not just rerouted flights. We witnessed the anatomy of interdependence. A mid-air announcement connected to a geopolitical fault line. A waiting passenger connected to a diplomatic channel. A rumor on a phone connected to a real-world safety decision. A safe landing connected to thousands of invisible actions. 3 lessons stand clear. Mobility must be resilient, not merely efficient. Citizens abroad need proactive crisis literacy, not reactive panic. States, airlines, employers, and communities must coordinate before the next shock, not during it. A safe landing is never just luck. It is planning, policy, communication, and human courage arriving at the same runway at the same time. The skies may remain uncertain. The real question is whether we learn fast enough on the ground. If one flight announcement now sounds different to us, that is the point. Because in the next crisis, clarity may be the line between panic and passage. And maybe that is the future staring back at all of us: a world where movement is easy in peace, fragile in conflict, and survivable only when foresight travels with us. Indians return home amid Middle East conflict. Not the end of a journey. The beginning of a new definition of preparedness.